Hello, welcome to my series on multicultural communication. My name is Dr. Marquita Byrd, aka Dr. B, and I'm happy to have you here with me today because we're going to talk about multicultural competence. My goal for this series is to help us understand diversity and multicultural communication in the U.S. since we are a very diverse country, and sometimes we feel fear and even anger about the diversity. So I'm hoping that we can ally some of that. The second goal is to facilitate the acquisition of skills and knowledge that will help us to function better in every place: family, social circles, work, the whole ball of wax. So today we're going to be talking about competence. Cultural competence is a word that you will find in many job descriptions. They want to know what is your cultural competence. And so the students who come and have my course in multicultural, of course, can talk about cultural competence that they've gained. And in fact, my entire university, one of the goals is to have the campus be multicultural in the curriculum. So multicultural is something that you need, cultural competency is something that you need to acquire and your children need to acquire so that we can function better. Let's talk first about what is competence, multicultural competence. It has several things. The first is that you start with a desire for multicultural respect and empathy. You want to do it, and so that helps us to be better because cultural competence includes a set of skills, a set of values and principles that acknowledge the other person, that shows respect for the other person, and enables organizations to work better. So that's what it includes. It includes a philosophical stance that says that all human beings are worthy and equal. So that philosophical stance is the thing that guides us. So we're talking about what multicultural competence is. We want to maximize the chance for optimal interaction in a professional setting, in a family setting, at school, work. And next, we want to maximize the chance for having effective communication and relationships. Let's say you go to the bank and the person who's at the bank is wearing a hijab, or a person who's your mailman is African, or your child's teacher is Hispanic. These are the kinds of things we work with every day, or with your own family. Maybe you have a child who has gender identity differences. How do you handle that? How do you work with that? So cultural competence is very important. Now, you may ask the question, well, why should I care about being competent in culture, different cultures? Because I'm not involved with them, or I don't care about that, or I think multicultural is not a good thing. Diversity is not a good thing. Well, the reason you want to become competent is because, number one, we are a diverse nation. Number two, you cannot get away from cultural diversity, not just about culture and race, but also about gender, class. People who live in poverty have a different perspective. Here's why you need to be important. A, because it improves relationships in every setting. As I said, in the family, I live in a multicultural family. I have members who are white, I have members who are Hispanic, and of course African American. And as a family, we want to work effectively. We want everybody to feel comfortable. We want everybody to feel like they belong and have their needs met. And so competence is very important. How you talk, what you say, what you do. The second reason we want to do that is to reduce tension. Because if we're not competent in cultural diversity, then people tend to not be relaxed around us. I just finished watching a remake of All in the Family last night, which was a television show about a white bigot who was surrounded by people of color and very liberal son-in-law and daughter. And people felt uncomfortable. He also was very negative with his wife. He made his wife uncomfortable. So we don't want to be the person who generates tension in a relationship, in a setting. We want to be the person who reduces it. Of course, we can reduce conflict by being more culturally competent because you learn the things that maybe you shouldn't say. I'm not suggesting that we have to be race blind. That's not a good thing. Making somebody say, "Oh, I don't care about race," or "I don't look at race," is not the way to do it, because people are different and we have different cultural backgrounds, and so we need to be aware of those. It increases productivity in companies. Being culturally competent, particularly if you are a manager. Almost every manager is managing a multicultural workforce. There may only be one person who's different, but that's of course not true, because again, you have gender differences, you have age differences, you have religious differences, and so that manager needs to be competent to know how to talk to people. For example, very often in interviews with managers, a person may come in with a problem with another person, and the manager may say, "Oh, I don't want to hear about all your feelings and what you thought. Give me the facts." Well, giving the facts is not going to reduce the problem at all, because most often conflicts involve feelings. And so when the manager says, "Just give me the facts," very often for people of color, but basically for anybody, it's an off-put. It says, "I don't really want to hear what's going on. Just give me these pieces so I can solve the problem." But a better way to start would be to listen to the person and hear how they feel. I felt disrespected when so-and-so did something. I felt violated when he touched my butt. I felt, so you need to start with the feelings. I felt disrespected and that sort of thing. Start from there, let those be spoken, and then go on to the facts. Lastly, we can increase well-being at home if we learn how to handle differences. It's so hard in families when all of your children are not the same. And sometimes in families, we try to put them in a cookie cutter. Well, you're not like your brother, you're not like your sister, or nobody in the family is like that. That can happen because we're all individuals, we're all different persons. So you want to reduce that tension, you want to increase acceptance, even in your home, certainly in your community, absolutely at your school, at work, and in social settings. So that's why we want to become culturally competent. So my third point is, how do you achieve cultural competence? Most people say, my gosh, I can't know everything about everybody. That is true. And we don't all want to spend our lives reading about culture. We have other things to do. So they'll say, "Well, how can I do that? I can't know everything." That is true. Here's how you go about doing it. First, be aware of the fear factor. Being aware of the fear that you might have about diversity is very important. Now, fear is an important emotion. Fear alerts us that there's danger, and we consider things dangerous that we don't know. However, we want to not have fear about people that we see who are different, because it inhibits our society. Fear about people who are different is called xenophobia. Xenophobia, and that's a general fear of what we call the alien at home, the alien in our society. And so that's the thing that we have to work on, fear of people who look different, people who act different. We've had a horrible spate of murders of transgender women in the United States in the past 3 months. Almost all of them have been African American. And so I think people fear that gender change. They don't know what that means. And so unfortunately, they do unspeakable things. The second thing that you need to remember, and this is important, learn about your group. And I'm not talking specifically about gender. Learn about what it means to be a woman. Learn what it means to be about your class or your religion or your ability. One of the things that I surprise my students with is that I read on these things all the time. Number one, I'm African American, and I started reading about the African American experience when I was 17 with a book Before the Mayflower. And I've been reading that information. That was in 1968, and I've been reading it here until 2019. I had to learn about being a woman. I grew up in a family that was African American, of course, and we never ever talked about gender. Although it was a household full of women, we didn't talk about what it means to be a woman. So I was 30 years old before I realized that my gender may trigger negative impacts on each other, on people. So I started to learn about that. Your class. I learned in high school that I was poor. I didn't know I was poor, which means that was a great family experience, but I was poor. And I didn't realize that until I went to the houses of some of my white classmates, and I was amazed at the amount of space that was in the house. We had 8 people in 3 rooms. That sounds crowded, but we never felt crowded. But I remember going to their houses and thinking, wow, I must be really poor. We don't have any space. And are learning about your ability. One of my issues that I read about constantly is bipolar disorder, mental health issues, because I do have bipolar. And we can stumble around and wait on the doctor to tell us everything and have negative self-concepts. But that's not the way that anybody should live. So I read about the disease. I talk to people about the disease. And I even talk about it in my classes. And I have students every semester who are dealing with bipolar and other issues and come to talk to me. So we have to learn about all of the groups that we're in. And it's called intersectionality, which is what Judge Ginsburg coined that phrase. Intersectionality is where all of our characteristics come together and how we're impacted in our society. So that's the thing. The next thing, and I always suggest that you ask people. We see people doing things at work that we don't understand, eating foods that we don't understand, dressed in ways at festivals that we don't understand. If you really want to know, in a polite way, not say what you got on or why you eating that food. That's not polite. You may ask them, well, I was interested. I see your meal. I see that it's interesting. I was wondering, what is it? And people usually are so happy to share it with you just to know that you want to know more about them. One of the things I did a lot here in California, because I'd never seen such a diverse population, is I would see people in public have no idea what culture they came from. And I would actually walk up. I always started with this. Excuse me, but you are so beautiful. Or you are so handsome. And I said that because I do think all human beings are beautiful. All men are handsome. All children are wonderful. So I'm speaking true words. But I would say, I was wondering, what is your cultural background? And boy, people would light up. They will tell me all about who they were and what their culture was. And it's just a great experience. So I will ask people about what it is I don't understand. Now, we have to be careful not to spend a lot of time asking them, because the person who is different from you will get tired of teaching you about the differences. So you don't want to harangue them with that, but you do want to ask about specific things. The next thing is that we need to experience difference as just difference, not wrongness. Because it is different from you doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just different. And so we need to try to understand people in that sense. Because when we automatically see differences as wrong, then we're already judging in a negative way. There was a book published in the 70s, and that book was titled, I'm Okay, You're Okay. And it talked about the position that I'm okay, I think I'm all right, and I'm good, I'm all that, and I think you're okay also. You're all right, and you're good too. When we start from that perspective, I'm okay and you're okay, then we're open to meaningful exchange. We're not judging each other. I have a problem. I mean, here's one of my problems. You always have to monitor yourself. My son has tattoos. He has tattoos on his neck. He has tattoos on his arms. And I abhor that. I think for me, I would never have a tattoo. So I had to really, really work on our relationship so that every time I saw him, I wouldn't get this reaction. Oh, God, he looks terrible. I had to think it's different. And that's how he identifies himself. And that's how his generation does it. And that's all right. I had to come to that conclusion. That's all right. Otherwise, I would feel uncomfortable with him when I was with him. So we see these things, and you never know what's the thing that's going to bother you, what's going to cause tension, but you have to work on it. Lastly, be receptive to people talking to you about their differences because it's important to come to understand. Even if they may be silly, I remember going to college at a predominantly white school. I actually had classmates who had never seen black people. And there's still some, even in California, who come to school and never interacted with black people, just saw on TV. So the girls will sit around and ask me about my hair. What kind of hair do I have? And I had to talk about having curly hair. I actually had someone ask me, why are your hands white on the inside and your feet white on the bottom and not on the top? And I really didn't have a good answer for that because I didn't know enough about human DNA and biology. But I did say to them, that's just the way they are. This is the way they are, and this is me, and you got to accept me. I have to also say, though, that after a while, after 2 years doing that, I got tired. I became fatigued at doing it, and so I tried not to engage in long discussions. But you have to be open to explaining to people. So we've talked today about cultural competence, how important it is, and how you may achieve it. Don't feel overwhelmed. You don't have to learn it all at the same time, but you can start by asking people about their experiences. I'd like to thank you today for joining me in this talk on cultural communication and cultural competence. And if you want to know more about it, cultural competence, please follow the link below at the end of this video so that you can see what I've written about it and the lecture notes. I will leave you with this concept from Star Trek, and that concept is infinite diversity and infinite combinations. If you ever see the old Star Trek, sometimes you'll see Mr. Spock wearing this symbol, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. And that's what we should expect. That's what we should celebrate. Lastly, I'll leave with the saying that Mr. Spock says, live long and prosper.